And you are live.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome back again. Tonight, I am here with Karina Winston, the budget doctor, as she is known, also financial coach. Karina, say
I'm
hi.
really excited to be here. And this is a topic that I hold near and dear to my heart because of personal life experiences that I've gone through where I've personally felt the costs of hanging on to a job way too often and way too long, hanging onto a job way too long. And I have seen the cost of what happens when you're faced with a decision or a hard time where you could decide to leave and you're still staying, and there's consequences to the still staying.
Absolutely. So that is Karina. That's the introduction to what we'll be speaking about tonight. No,
Yeah,
go right
I
into it.
jumped right in.
Yeah, go right into it. The consequence of staying at a job for too long. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are the consequences? And how do you get out of it? Like, how do you get out of it? That's even the most important question of it all. But before we even dive into that, I've been really bad at doing something for myself. And every time I get off one of my lives, I have at least two or three people saying, "You keep ignoring yourself." I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?"
The big intro.
Yeah, I don't do an intro. I don't introduce myself as a coach. I don't talk about my platform. I just go right into the live because I'm always just so excited about the topic. So I'm making a correction and starting off introducing myself and my brand. As all of you know by now, my name is Olu. I am a certified motivational life coach and motivational speaker, the keynote speaker of my very own conferences, Let's Talk, and a small business startup consultant. That's my platform. That's what God directed me to do. This is what I've been doing for the last year, and this is what I love to do. It really is my heart posture. You can find me on all the social media platforms and simply by searching my name. My brand is my name. My website is my name. My email is my name, info@olumiuli.com. You can find me on Instagram by searching my name. You can find me on Facebook by searching my name, Olumuli. That is who I am. That is what I do. I had my first conference this past April of 2024, and my next one is coming up in April of 2025. Watch out for details for the ticket sales, ticket pricings, location, etc. If you want to be a part of my mailing list and my contact list, send me an email at info@olumuli.com and you'll be up to date on all of my functions and activities and conferences and retreats that are coming up. Thank you for listening. I'm going to hand it over to Karina to do the same for herself, and then we'll dive into tonight's topic. Karina?
All right. Thank you for the introduction. And I so agree that so many of us are used to giving other people the spotlight and so used to being a helping hand for other people. And I know personally that that's who you are as a person. So I'm happy that you have finally stepped into the light to introduce yourself and say all of the good things that everybody else has been already saying about you.
Thank you.
So I go by the budget doctor. My name is Karina Winston, and I'm a financial coach who specializes in money mindset, financial psychology, behavioral, behavior consumerism, and just talking about all things money. I think a lot of what I discuss affects everyday people, but aren't things that are necessarily talked about in the open context when we talk about money. For example, we might talk about emergency funds and sinking funds and all of these different things that you can do to repay your debt. But something that's very specific to me and my brand is that I talk about the mindset that has to be changed behind everything, and as well as that, the principles to building wealth, which are critical and come before any sort of financial principle that we're already familiar with. So I'm excited to be here and engage in more of the types of conversations that I already enjoy having, and especially on this topic because I mentioned it's near and dear to my heart. And you can find me at The Budget Doctor on all platforms as well. It's consistent, and www.thebudgetdoctor.ca.
Thank you, Karina. So we're going to get right into tonight's discussion. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the consequences of staying at a job too long. And before I hand it over to Karina, because this is her platform, it's her wheelhouse, God is very intentional when he does things. There's no coincidence when it comes to God. I know I'm having this conversation this night with Karina. about this topic, and I come across two um, articles on LinkedIn. And I went, what? I'm going to read the first one and then I'm going to let you comment on it. And then I'll read the second one later on. This one here starts off like this. I never told my boss how her daily microaggressions were affecting me. Little things that felt like pinpricks, but eventually turned into deep wounds. You're so articulate, she would say. Can you tell me how Black people might feel about this? You're just being too sensitive. I brushed them off, thinking I could handle it, but deep down it was eating away at my sense of worth and peace of mind. One day after work, I was driving home and could barely catch my breath. My chest felt tight. I called my sister in a panic and she urged me to pull off the highway. I exited and headed straight for the hospital. I spent hours in the ER. The doctor asked me about my work, and after I explained what had been happening, he said it clearly. Your job is burning you out. It's affecting your health. That's when I made a difficult change. I quit that toxic environment and I've never looked back.
Wow.
This comes up like literally within days of us planning to do this. And I'm like, what?
And I want to know how many of us could have written that ourselves in some different way of the matter. What things have our different employers and bosses and managers said to us that chip away at our sense of self? When I listen to that story, the first thing I would say to that person is, how's your health? And how long did it take you to make the connection that the symptoms that you're facing on a health basis are related to the almost rejecting of self as you don't respond during the times of your discomfort? Because if you can grow aware of how your body feels when somebody is saying those things to you, you're so articulate. You might not even realize how much your scalp sweats right after, or how you can't focus for an hour or two, or how you can't stop thinking about it all day. Or sometimes, and if you mention it to the wrong person, they'll be quick to dismiss you. But if you haven't gone through this, you don't understand how serious it is to go into a work environment every single day where you feel like you can't say what's on your mind. And because of a power dynamic, you're not able to protect your sense of being. It's a spiritual trespassing.
Oh, I like that.
Literal spiritual graffiti.
Spiritual trespassing.
Like you're putting yourself in an environment where they're just putting graffiti all over you every single day. And by the time you go home, if you're not aware of it, like imagine if you were stepping on gum on the sidewalk every single day, the gum would get pretty impacted. You wouldn't be able to pick out the gum out of the sidewalk. So what happens to your self-esteem after a period of time working with someone who makes you feel so small?
Wow. I actually have experienced that. I worked for a company, which was a really nice company. It was a very generous.
Always a nice company.
The company was really nice. It's a small company, but really nice, treated their employees well. I just happened to work for a micromanager. And I'm a people person, easygoing. You can tell me anything, talk to me about anything. And he was a dot the I, cross the T kind of person, but in a micromanager kind of way. And I know how it affected me. I know the hair that I was losing when I was getting ready to come to work in the morning and I'm combing my hair and it's all on the bathroom floor. I spent my lunch hours walking up and down Yonge Street.
Yep.
There was just no joy in life. I tell my friends this. They all know the story. I didn't want to go to work one Monday. I woke up and I'm like, I just can't go there and do that. No. I'm going to go to the doctor. And then I called in sick on Tuesday as well. But we all know once you've called in sick 2 days in a row, you need a doctor's note.
Where?
Oh, back in the day?
These are serious. Oh, you know what? This is where my young millennial self is showing.
So
I've always had sick days,
Yeah, no. If you back in the day, if you called in sick for more than 2 days in a row, you must come with a doctor note. So on the Wednesday, I knew I wasn't going to work. So I got up and I started walking to the doctor's office. And I'm walking to the walk-in clinic. There's not a thing wrong with me. Well, and I'm trying to say, what am I going to tell this doctor? Nothing's wrong with me, but I just couldn't go into that office and deal with this man. Not this week, not today. And I walked into the office and thank God these doctors are so busy that they force feed you information.
Yeah.
He's like, how's your stomach? Is it bothering you? I'm like, well, come to think of it. And how's your head? Yeah. I'm like, and he goes, yeah, there's this horrible bug. And by the time I was done, I said very little, but I left with a prescription
Yep.
of 7 days of medication. And the
Mm-hmm.
doctor, no, you take the rest of the week off. Let me know if you need Monday and Tuesday off too. But that's how it affects you. It affects your quality of life.
It
It affects your
does.
relationships with your family members at home. If you're married, your spouse, if you have kids, your children. And I'll never forget the day they called me into the manager's office, the director of VP's office. And the manager of VP was sitting in the chair and he was sitting over there. And I can read the letter upside down and they're letting me go. First time ever I've been let
Oh,
go.
wow.
And I'm saying to myself, do the best acting job you've done in your life. Start to cry. You're supposed to be upset. They are letting you go. Don't do cartwheels. You're not supposed to be joyous. But again, it was a good company. They paid me for 3 months. I had been there for 9 months. They gave me a 3-month package. They paid for a top-notch consulting firm, all that stuff. Took me home, sent me home in a cab ride. And I was calling friends going, I'm out of there. I'm out of there. So, and when I thought about doing this topic with you on the financial side of things, financially and business wise and career wise, staying at a job for too long, what came to me is that you can exchange the word job for everything. Staying in a relationship too long, staying in a marriage too long, being friends with that person for too long. I thought that's so interchangeable, the discussion.
It is so interchangeable.
And it's pretty much all the same. How long do you stay? How long is too long? And how do you get out?
With everything. I posted something today that said the key to your transformation is in whatever you can't walk away from.
Oh.
And that sounds like it applies to just everything.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what you were just saying. Definitely. The key to your transformation. Okay, you want to be an entrepreneur, but you haven't turned your energy away from putting all of your well-being into the job that is making you feel so small every single day, to the effect of that LinkedIn post that you read earlier on.
Oh my goodness.
That person, I would only imagine, if you ask as a life coach, what are your hopes and dreams? What do you want for yourself? What's the future that you want for yourself? A lot of the times, if you've been in that job for so long and feeling that way for so long, you can't even think about the future. I feel like it was for a long time, I couldn't even dream for myself, because you don't know what you're good at anymore. Because for the last how many years, I mean, insert how many years have been at that job, it's like you've only been working according to what somebody else thinks that you're good at.
What somebody else thinks your capability and limits are.
Capability and limits. And of course, they're going to tell you, they're going to vocalize it to you. Then you take it on as, I guess I can't do those things. Oh, I want to speak at work, but they're telling me so-and-so is speaking. They have such and such more experience. And, you know, you need to do some work. You know, you're more junior and this and that. But if in real life, if I have my business in the Budget Doctor, I'm getting so many comments about how I should continue speaking and how much people want to hear what I have to say, and continuing conversations about important topics. And it's such a contrast to the corporate environment that I came out of, because yes, you feel so silenced and you take on everything that they're telling you. So you don't feel confident in your talents. You don't feel confident in your skills, and they don't allow you to even believe that you have gifts.
And a lot of the times, I talked to a really good friend of mine. We used to talk often when we were both working in offices downtown. We are our own worst critic. And now hearing you say that, I'm now wondering if it was part what they made us believe about our abilities and what we thought of ourselves. I'm rethinking that. But she and I would talk all the time about how we felt inadequate. Both of us had high-paying jobs. We were up there, I guess you can put it. And here I am, senior corporate law clerk, working at some of the biggest firms in Toronto. And you're called upon to do a meeting or to put together a program or whatever they call upon you to do. And you just feel like, this is it. This is the project where they're going to figure out that I'm a fraud and walk me out the door. You're so hard on yourself. And I remember having that first conversation with my girlfriend and her saying she felt the exact same way. Her mouth got full of foam. Like, we just didn't know how to speak. We hated being in that group setting where you're in the boardroom and, you know, Shireen's going to talk. And then after Shireen is going to be Karina, and then comes Olu, and you're sitting there hoping like Karina and Shireen takes up all the time because you just don't want it to come to you. And then it comes to you and you feel like you're just talking gibberish. That Karina sounded so polished. And I loved her presentation. And Shireen came, yeah, she came with it. Boy, I could listen to those guys. And now I'm talking foolishness. And me and my friend would talk about that all the time. We just didn't feel like we fit or we belonged. And now that I'm listening to you, I really wonder whose fault that was. Was it part ours and part how they make you feel? I don't know.
It's the both of those things. But you know what is so incredibly interesting about hearing you share that is that I felt the opposite. And I think that is the saddest part, is how much therapy, how much conversations, how many coaches and mentors I had to talk to remember who I was again.
Oh, no.
I don't have a problem speaking in groups of people. I'm the opposite. You have to shut me up.
You have to shut me up with my family and friends. I will take over conversations in Bible study. I will take over conversations with my girls. But when the Lord said to me, have a women's conference, we had a conversation in the middle of the street.
Good.
Can I just tell you? Because I said, who are you talking to?
You felt called.
I felt called, but I just felt like he wasn't talking to me.
Yeah.
Because I can't do group talkings.
Yeah.
I get tongue-tied. I think I speak way too fast. Are they hearing me? Are they understanding me? Am I making sense? Am I pronouncing the words properly? So at my conference where all you guys were just so engaged and so, it was phenomenal. And I'm watching everybody take notes. And for the first time, I'm saying, you guys can actually use your cell phones. Everybody had put their cell phone down. Everybody was taking notes. I'm speaking and I'm talking to God at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm so emotional right now. I'm saying, I'm so sorry for doubting you. I'm so sorry for not trusting you. And I'm speaking to you guys at the same time. I felt so at home and I felt like I belonged.
Wow.
But I had to get there, like physically be there to feel that.
And you had to leave your corporate environment, unfortunately.
Yes, 100%.
That was the big one. Because if it was, and you realize it's not the skill, it's the environment. And I guess going back to it, when I would be in boardrooms and having those conversations, I'm a project manager. I'm the one who makes the agenda. I love to facilitate the meetings. It's when my ideas are shut down, or my most common experience would be when those who are above me at work, because the corporate hierarchy would take my ideas and not credit me.
Yep.
Or I have always worked for executives and right. So in my experience, I could write letters, emails, and it's always having to write somebody else's name underneath. That's not my own. Right?
No.
What?
How you mean?
Oh, that's how it works.
Okay.
That's absolutely how it works.
Did you know that? I do.
I've just seen them change because I was pretty high up too, and I've just seen them change the name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember, I'll talk about a job I had years ago. And I remember I was pretty young and I had written a letter, and the letter was in response to, I don't want to out the job, but
it was in response to something.
It was in response to something. And oh no, I just lost my thought.
But you wrote the letter.
Sorry. Yes, I wrote the letter. I was responding to someone who had called the office with a question, and it was a pretty, they wanted key information. So it was specific information. I took a lot of time to draft this information.
You probably had to do some research, look up the question.
Research. This took me a couple of weeks.
Oh.
I'm downplaying it. This was coordinated efforts between multiple levels of government, of people. And I remember the feeling of when my superior at that time came out and read the letter and was like, okay, great. Put my name, press send. This is so common in my experience. It's so funny that you're reacting that way. I think it's just the jobs that I've had. I have always worked for high-powered people. And so I know that I am always hired to be somebody's second brain. But that's how it works, because when you're at that level, you can't do everything, but you're also not going to admit that you can't do everything. So that's when you start to hire people who can do it for you. And so this is where either you can decide to stay there forever and always kind of live in a shadow and always kind of be the person who feels like, okay, I'm meant to stay here and only here. Because depending on how aware the person you work for is about themselves, like how self-aware they are, how conscious they are of other people's lives, feelings, how empathetic they are as a human, that'll impact your experience directly. Because if you work for someone who doesn't understand those things, your life's already over, because you kind of have to give your life over to that person.
I'm sitting here shocked, and I'm seeing comments that are saying, yes, not unusual.
Not unusual.
And people are saying that's mentally exhausting. And the reason why it's shocking for me, I'm coming from a law firm background, so they do it right to your face.
Okay.
They say to you, draft me a letter.
Okay.
Right? So you know that all communications going outside the door of a law firm has to go under a partner's letterhead.
Yeah.
Because if anything happens, worst case scenario, there's a lawsuit that comes out of whatever interactions we were doing. It goes under the umbrella of the firm, not me personally. If I'm doing what I call basic corporate 101 work, incorporating a company, annual resolutions, anything like that, I'll put my name on it.
Okay.
Because it's really what I like to call corporate 101, really baby kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So if anything goes wrong, they're going to contact me. A partner of a firm doesn't want a client saying, that's, Karina's not a director, because he's going to just call me and say, we fixed that. So they can come to me, especially when you have a title as a senior clerk. But anything at the firm, the lawyer will call you in his office, and the instruction will be, please draft me a letter.
Not in the nonprofit world.
See, it'll say, put it on my letterhead, blah, 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 blah. So that's why I'm sitting here going, what? Because in my world, it's blatant. It's just right up front. You know what you're doing.
No, it's not blatant. And I find now that in the entrepreneurial world, because this is such a common story among entrepreneurs, like our various experiences in the corporate world, there are vast different experiences between people who are from the legal background, people from the health background. My hat tips off to you. If you work in a health related environment, the politics are subhuman. That's what I would say. That's a whole different ball game.
For a whole other day.
That's a whole different
game. That can take
game.
up a whole episode right there.
Get our hospital workers in. No, not today. But anyways, I have always worked for government and nonprofit environments. So that's the land of the passive aggressive.
Okay.
That's the land of they don't tell you to your face. As a matter of fact, I'm shocked when I hear my friends or just anybody tell me, a lawyer came out today and they told me that my work sucked and that because they could be so incredibly cutthroat and direct. So I've heard from all of my peoples who have worked at law firms, including my mother, right? And no, here you won't even know that someone's upset with you. You'll come out of a meeting and not know that the whole meeting was about you.
Oh.
You don't even realize. Instead of telling you that you made a mistake, they'll make it an agenda item, like a general announcement about what you did, but won't look you in the eye. Will make it generally, so you have to sit there and wonder, like, is this about me? And then you have your work friend. There's always a work friend in these environments. You got a gut check with this work friend. They keep you sane. But I would say, when I was in the nonprofit and sort of government-like environments, it felt uncanny. Like it felt like I was on the opposite side of a mirror, like a double-sided mirror. And like they were living one life and I'm living another, because they're having a whole alternate reality over there. I don't know if you're still following what I'm saying, but it's an alternate reality, because they're having one conversation, but in here they're meaning another.
It's that whole, I like to be told to my face what's going on. I don't like that roundabout way that you're describing right now, where you have to sit there and try to figure out, are they talking about me? No, they're not talking about me. In front of me while I'm sitting there?
Mental gymnastics.
Yeah, I don't have time for that. And I remember working at one law firm. I was there for like 8.5 years until the firm literally shut down. But when I got there, I was warned about this one particular partner, that he was a donkey's, what.
Yeah.
And I don't judge people based on that. I think about it and I park it, but I'm not going to treat you a certain way just because somebody says Karina is difficult. I'm going to form my own relationship with you and see how that is. And I treated that particular partner like that. And one day he had asked me to do something, to look up some information on a bunch of different companies. There's about 6, 7, or 8 of them. I compiled all the information. It took me about a week. And so I had all these files piled up. And so when he came to get the information, I showed him all the piles. He goes, oh, let's go to a boardroom. So we take it to the boardroom and I lay them all out. And I'm about to explain to him step by step. This is what I did for this one. This is what you asked me to find. This is where I looked and this is what I found. I'm about to go into Olu. Like, Olu's about to do her thing.
Yeah,
I'm going to let my light shine, right?
Yes.
And I go to talk and he does this. Shh.
Yeah.
Okay, so those of you that can't see, Shireen almost fell off her chair just now. And you saw Karina's reaction. And I'm sitting there. I have been at this job, oh man, a couple of months. I can't afford to be ghetto or to react like how Olu would react on the streets.
Yeah. Like if you've been there for a couple of years,
And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, this man doesn't know me. He doesn't know, but he just told me to shut up. Did he just tell me to? This is the conversation going on.
The words?
No, he didn't. He just went, shh. But that's saying shut up. And so I thought, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to handle this? And so he reads and reads and reads and reads and reads. And now he wants to ask me a question. But I think boyfriend forgot that he told me in a roundabout way to shut up. So he asked his question. I took the file back from him, flipped through the pages until I found the answer that what he asked me to, turned it back to him and pointed.
You were selectively mute.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Thank you. Next time I tell the story, I'm going to use that.
Selectively mute.
And he looked at me and I pointed and he read it. And he's like, oh, okay, that's good. That's good. So what about this? And I went,
he lost the rights.
The entire meeting went like that. All 7, 8 files. I did not utter a word because I follow instructions. When I can't do what I want to do to you, I follow instructions.
For how long?
We were like this the entire 8.5 years I worked there. People never understood why we got along so well. And it goes back to what I said at my conference. We teach people how to treat us. Had I reacted and cowered when he told me to shh, right? He would have thought he owned me. But he saw the way I reacted. We were like 8.5 years I was there. We had no issues.
Wow.
Nobody could understand how he and I got along like that. So, wow. Anyways, I'm going to read something else I came across. Oh, yeah. People are just agreeing with your statement.
People are just agreeing. Okay.
I'm the one that didn't realize how common what you said is.
Oh, it's crazy.
I did not
here.
know.
And let me tell you how bad my health got at one point.
Oh, no.
My health, well, I have an autoimmune disorder now, so that's how bad my health got. I was that stressed. And it's such a common thing. And we don't even associate autoimmune and cancers. Like, it's starting to become more common knowledge now that it comes from stress. But so many high-powered CEOs and executives are so incredibly sick. They're on so many medications. They're so incredibly sick. And so I noticed the higher you go and the longer you're in these environments, it is a health sacrifice. And the costs are, I would say the costs come with disassociation. So because in the environment, if you're treated that way and you feel like you have to stay and you have to survive, your brain literally shuts off certain parts to protect you while you're going through difficult times.
Wow.
You don't fully feel it until later, until you're in a safe enough environment to be able to reflect on what happened to you. So you're just kind of dulling. You're just becoming a little duller.
And is that where we just kind of go through the motions?
Yep. And that's when you're shopping on Yonge Street. That's when I'm going shopping on Queen Street every single day. I remember every single day, my colleagues always knew me as the person who I would always take over, like just over an hour, like an hour and a half. And I would go shopping down the street. I would just go. It was a complete escape from the fact that I didn't want to go back after lunch.
Me too.
Right?
Me too.
And I looked good while doing it because I would spend all my money. And then that's why now, even as a coach, when I have conversations about budgeting, I do the budget, then I put it to the side and talk about life, because I could have budgeted all of my takeout and all of my shopping at that time, but it wouldn't have changed my circumstance. I would have been bullying myself into trying to not pacify myself during a time where I clearly needed to pacify something. I was clearly very sad. I clearly had things I really needed to distract myself from, right? Wow. And so the cost to your health,
Mm.
to spend, to disassociate, the sense of self, like the disappearing on the inside. Add to that, imagine someone who's been in the workplace for 20 years now.
No, I can relate. I thank God for the kind of personality that He gave me, and even as somebody who considers themselves to be very strong, and I do, I've experienced that. It wasn't
Mm.
just that example that I've given you. You experience that when you work into these companies and organizations. The bigger they are, you're right. The bigger they are, the bigger the problem is. But I fortunately read an article. I think my daughter was, oh my goodness, a couple of years old. So that's over 20 years ago. My daughter's 29. This particular article said, in order to maximize your earning potential, you have to change jobs every 3 to 5 years.
It's true.
Long
is
gone were
true.
the days where people left school and stayed at the same job their entire career, but they had the gold watches and the diamond earrings and all that because that's what they got as gifts, right? And so I read that, and I really, that really stuck. And so I was one of those people that I didn't stay at a job for very long. I didn't stay long enough for it to really affect me. That job at that one firm where I was for 8.5 years was probably one of my longest.
Okay.
Yes, but I'm going to read this other, and this is something I've experienced as well. And this, again, God is so intentional when He does things, and He places things before you when He knows what's coming up. So this I got on LinkedIn as well. It said, we made a job offer to a candidate who applied for a role with our company. So the girl applied and they made her a job offer. Okay. But during the interview process, she had told us about how horrible her current job is. It was extremely toxic. The boss, she worked with a boss who degrades her at every turn, how she goes home most days in tears. Our offer was a little bit more money than she was making, would allow her to be fully remote. And to be honest, we are really nice. This is the lady saying this, laughing out loud. Her boss makes her feel, sorry, my phone's acting up. Her boss makes her feel like she's not worthy. I'll have soup delivered to your home when you are sick, she tells the girl jokingly. She says when she gave her notice, so she tells the girl, we'll deliver soup to you at home when you're sick. We're a really nice company. Paid her a little bit more than what she was getting paid. She can work home completely remote. She goes to her current job. She gives her notice, and they made her a counteroffer. And to this lady's surprise, she accepted the counteroffer.
No.
For those of you guys, you can hear Karina crying.
I can simply pass
away. You can't see Shireen falling off the chair again.
No.
She says, this is a powerful reminder of how hard it can be for people to break free from a toxic environment, even when a better opportunity is right in front of them. This came up on my feed, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What a thing to cut off. Oh, I'm sure you do. Please do. But I was at a job. I hope, please remember it. Okay. I was at a job, and I had done a temp. After I left that company that let me go, they paid me, so I stayed home for the summer.
Yeah.
And then I took a temp job, and I just taken temp jobs until I can find what I really wanted. And then I had this contract job for 15 months, stayed the whole time. I didn't want to burn bridges. That's who I am.
Yeah.
It's a contract. I want to stick with my word. Then after that contract, another contract came up, and that was a 9-month contract. And I'm like, oh man, these contracts, all these good opportunities are passing me by while I'm doing these contract works. Well, 2 months into that contract, a full-time, permanent, high-paying job came up. I applied, I got it, I took it. Went to the owner of the firm. It's a 2-person firm, and I said, sorry, I have to go. Well, he just tore me up. I thought you're a woman of integrity. I thought you're a woman of your word. This is a contract. I can sue you. I can sue the agency that brought you here. I left his office in tears. I called back the other firm, and I said, I'm going to just stay my time here because she said, this sounds self-serving, she said to me, but I just only met you once. You don't come across as someone that can be pushed around, and they're pushing you around. They're bullying you. And I went, hold on a second.
Hey, you have to remember who you were.
I have to remember who I was.
I'm Olu.
I'm like, what? Girl, you ain't never lied. Went back to his office the next morning, and I said, you don't qualify to judge me. You know nothing about me. What I'm doing is integrity because I have my family to take care of. You see, if anything happens with your firm, if your revenue starts to go down, I'm the new person on the block. I'm the first to go. Where's your integrity going to be? So my last day will be on so and so and so. Thank you very much.
And
The
you left?
next day he calls me in his office and he says, I'm so sorry. I've been going through a lot of stress, as you were so right. What if I offer you full-time permanent here at the salary that they're offering you? And I said, that's really nice of you, but the waters have been muddied.
Good.
The waters are muddied. I will forever look at you as the person who said all those things about me. I would also
Yeah.
feel like if anything went wrong, I'd be the first person to go. And you will probably never really trust me.
This is when it, like, taking it back, he showed you the fruit. He literally showed you a bad tree cannot produce good fruit.
All right, now preach.
And so he already showed you.
All right, so
So
where
what
am
are
I
you going back
going?
to the apple for? It already tasted bad the first
apple
time.
is rotten.
The apple was already rotten.
You can't unrotten. Is that a word?
You can't unrot the apple.
So that's what I said. So this girl here, talk about this.
I can relate to that. I was going to say, as much as I nearly fell off my seat, I was her. I was her. And that's why I'm on this couch as the budget doctor now.
Okay, talk now.
So the first time I was played with in the corporate environment, I became autoimmune. I'm hypothyroid. I have Hashimoto's. And so I went on a sick leave. You would think that all of the events that led me up to that leave would mean I would look for other employment. Do you think I looked for other employment?
You went back?
I looked for a promotion.
In the same company?
In the same company. I took my break, got my health back together.
And went back?
And I went back. And I went back.
Okay, so you're the best person to explain.
There's more.
The mentality of someone that goes back. Did it just not occur to you to go somewhere else? What happened there?
It's exactly this. The cycle. You have to be shown enough pain. I didn't go through enough pain at that time. I'm hard of hearing. My mom would say, like, I need, like, to get beat. Like, I need trial by fire. Like, I need to see all of the consequences. So that is me. And I know that's who I am. I didn't feel it bad enough on my first leave. I was too young, spring chicken, if you will. So I got it together and I said, you know what? I will not go out this way. It also goes hand in hand with your sense of self is degraded and your sense of self has been replaced with corporate values. So I became associated with the status of my position and how I would be perceived. And growing up in a family that's pretty corporate, like most of us have corporate jobs, and coming from an immigrant family, it's like having a nice corporate job, downtown job, nice. Everybody looks at you like you have it all together. Mm-hmm. You don't want to feel like the loser. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm like, am I going to look like the loser or am I going to go back? Mm-hmm. I went back. Do you think they changed? You obviously know the answer. They did not change. They didn't change. And as a matter of fact, it got worse. Okay? It got worse. Not only was I writing the job description for the job I was in to hire more of me, they hired more of me.
And let you go.
No, they didn't. No. Oh, okay. It was worse. It was worse. They hired this person. This person was actually less qualified than me at that time. And obviously I had history at this company and was like long serving in the position for a long time before we had other staff in that position. So it was like history, experience, relationships, all of those different things. Not only did I write the job description, not only was I on the hiring panel in the interview room, not only was I part of the committee to choose who gets hired, but was the person paid $20,000 more than me and then made senior to me? Oh, okay. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. It just kept getting worse. So yes, I can understand how somebody can get licks and go back for more bulla. Okay? I understand because I did. It's to break a pattern. It means to walk away from who I thought I was at that time.
So if you're just joining us now, wow.
God willing, are you just joining us?
Wow. But earlier on, if you weren't with us earlier on, I said, although the title is the cost of staying at a job too long, you can remove the word, or you can replace the word job with relationship, marriage, friendship. You can replace it with anything. We just happen to be talking about jobs because we're talking with the budget doctor. But just listening to these different stories, like even recapping my own that I lived through and listening to yours, I literally have a headache. This is what we go through in the corporate world. This is what we
is.
go through to keep up with the Joneses and to work down on Fifth Avenue, or in our case, Bay Street, Wall Street in New York. This is the price we pay. And you're right. There's a certain status that you feel, real or not, real or imaginary. I know I walked a little taller, shoulders like wide, chest out, because I was working at top Toronto law firms. I was in boardrooms with senior partners. I was on calls with senators from the United States. I was on calls from people in Hong Kong. That was my world.
Wow.
You know, we would go to the beer market afterwards to celebrate this huge transaction. The whole time I'm screaming in my head, I don't want to go. Don't want to go.
You know
These
you
are
don't
not,
want to go.
these are not my people. This is not my world. I work here. I don't get it. But then you have certain partners like, oh, you got to come. You were such an integral part of this.
They love to say
They
that.
love
I was
to
already an
say
integral part
that.
during 9 to 5. Leave me
Always,
alone
yeah.
during my 5 to 9, please.
So I get it. We do have that. I can't lie, and that's part of the reason why you went back. Honestly speaking,
yeah,
there's a certain
status.
thank you that goes with working at those jobs. However, I say that, and of course the salary, because I know I made a pretty good salary towards the end.
Golden handcuffs.
There's a price to pay for it. When I started my career as a corporate law clerk, I wasn't a senior. I was just a corporate law clerk. Everybody kept saying to me, you're so smart. Why aren't you a lawyer? You're so smart. Why aren't you a lawyer? Do you know what corporate managers are making? You can be making this and you can be making that. And I was wise enough then, and that was a long time ago, 20 plus years ago. I was wise enough then to say no. At that time, it was pagers, not cell phone. We had pagers back in the day. And anybody making north of 75,000 back in my day, you were really high up. And you had a pager on each hip, right and left. All through the night, your pager is going off. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice my life for that. There were other sacrifices that I made, sometimes willingly and sometimes not. You don't even know that you're thrown into it until you're into it. It's like a bad marriage. You don't know how bad your marriage is until you find yourself in a bad marriage. So how do you recognize that you are in a job that you have to leave? You've been there way too long. And of course, the real question is, how do you leave, especially in this tough economic time that we're in? How do you say my health, my life, my family is far more important, and leave? How do you do that?
There's Olu, I'm like, how much time do we have? I'm like, I have so many things to say. You mentioned so many things. I talk a lot about money scripts, which are the 4 different types of negative programming that run our relationships with money. One of them being money status, like how it makes you look, the clothing it's able to buy you, all of those things. So it was definitely money status was the script that was running my mind at that time. And how do you leave when things are bad enough? Most of us, and depending on your level of stubbornness, you might have to go through and be cut off at the knees. I had to be cut off at the knees. I didn't even finish. You know, I did not leave after that time. Olu.
I'm gonna ask Shireen to get off the chair and just sit on the floor
so that she doesn't drop.
Right? You know, she's gonna drop.
I didn't leave. I got so much worse.
Okay. Hold on. Stop the tape. Rewind. Come again. So you were part of the hiring committee. You drafted the job description. You were part of the whole group that got together and decide who to hire. You guys hired this person. This person made $20,000 more than you out the gate. So she was hired at that salary.
Out the gate.
And then she became your senior.
And then became my senior.
And you still stayed?
Not only did I still stay, but I was still being given senior level projects because she couldn't do the projects that I was able to do because she didn't have the company knowledge.
She was getting paid $20,000 more for you to do her work?
To sit down there.
For you to do her work?
Yes.
Okay, carry on.
Okay. So
just wanted to make sure I was clear.
After that, because tenacious is the word. Remember I said, I'm not fearful in boardrooms. This is the problem. And this is what like you get taken advantage of either way. If you're too much on the quiet side or too much on the boisterous side.
Can I
Yeah.
interrupt and ask you a question? Do you think there's a part of you that had to prove to them that you knew more than she did?
Absolutely. Oh, that's where I was
I
getting.
love your honesty. Carry
Oh,
on.
that's where I was getting. This is totally ego, and I had to be humbled by God himself.
Okay.
I had to be taken down.
Okay.
It was a complete takedown
Okay.
of self to become the budget doctor. And I had to be okay with being embarrassed. I had to be okay with wearing some shame and letting people ask me, how's that little job? You know how my job is. Like, you know how it's going.
Some people are wrong.
People are wrong. So anyways, so I stayed at the job, and I'm so tenacious that I'm like, but I deserve that promotion's mine. There's room for more than one of us at the top. I can forgive them for promoting you and paying you more than me. But I'd be damned if I'm not going to try. I created an entire proposal about why I should be promoted right now. I deserved it, though. I did. And it was based on history. It was based on truth. I wasn't being up my own behind about it. It was factual. It was factual. It got pretty bad. Like,
the end result was?
Oh, I ended up leaving.
Did they ever give you that promotion? Or okay, I just sorry.
Oh, Lou,
sorry.
I told you it had to hurt.
Sorry.
I told you,
had to be
if I got the promotion, I would have had to repeat this cycle at another job.
And God says no.
God
Stop
said no.
the madness.
It was a humbling of, even because especially in the positions I work in, I tend to not just work with like one manager. I tend to work with many, like across projects and all of those things. I had managers speaking up on my behalf for the promotion. Like, there are things that when I look back, I'm like, I was co-signed in so many different ways, and I was blind to it because I wanted the approval of the hierarchy. I not only wanted the approval of the hierarchy, I wanted to be on the hierarchy. I did not want to be to feel small in the room. I did not want them to take that power away from me. And I had to be like, that's how I had to go out. But when I look back on the support I had from directors, from managers, from other staff who saw what was happening, I still have emails. And to this day, this is like a testament to, you don't know how the impact you have on people until you leave. I have had coffee chats with a crazy number of old colleagues who have had to come for advice now to ask about similar situations, who have found themselves at the bottom of someone's shoe just the same,
Wow.
feeling small. What did you do? I'll tell you what I did. It's the hardest thing I ever had to do was walk away from a high-paying job at the age that I'm at, because it feels like you're walking away from, like, I just started my career. I mean, over a decade in, but I'm still a baby in the world. So I feel like, oh, I'm walking away from an opportunity that made me, you know, who I am and how people see me. But I would say the pain was worth it. I knew it was bad when I was I remember walking for miles and miles while I was on one of my leaves in front of Lake Ontario, just thinking about life. You know, those days I just felt like, you know, the old men with the stick and the bag and I just felt like I am going through it. That was my eat, pray, love. I went through my own eat, pray, love. And I do feel like I came out on the other side 10 times stronger.
Yes.
10 times stronger. Now I work contract only. Now I take on speaking arrangements, workshops. I work on a contractual basis so that I'm not like sort of full-time and under just one umbrella at all times, because I realized I am actually too much for one space. I am usually, honestly.
I like that. I like your directness. And one of the things that came to me while you were talking, and I kind of answered my own question a few minutes ago, where I said, how do you get out? Especially in this tough economic time when there's mortgage payments and car payments and food. And I mean, just all the things that we have to pay for. Our salaries are remaining the same or getting lower, and everything else is increasing. And then you talked about taking on contract work, taking on speaking engagements. You talked about, you know, I guess you get to pick your own assignments.
Yeah.
And I worked with a girl who refused to work full-time for anybody.
Yeah.
She had 8 contract jobs. She worked in finance.
Can relate.
Yep. And she had 8 different jobs. She worked with one for 2 days a week, the other one 3 days a week, one day a week, one every other Saturday. And I'm like, how do you keep it straight? She's like, it's perfect for me. When I want to
Mhm.
go on vacation, I shut them all down.
Yep.
She made well over, I don't even know how much she made a year.
She wasn't hungry.
She was not hungry. She did well. She did well. And that's the answer for those that are listening and saying to yourself, you and Karina are making this sound so easy, like just walk away. I would not tell somebody to sign up for my current life, as grateful as I am for where God has placed me, because all of you all that have told me the impact that I'm having on people, and I'm loving it. I love being used as a vessel for the Holy Spirit to speak through me. I love it. Would I recommend what I'm going through to anybody, including myself? No.
No.
It is not easy.
You paid the price,
You
Olu.
have to pay the price. But as someone said to me that I've never met before in my life, have never met her in person. She's in the States. She joined one of my lives. And my first time seeing her on the live and speaking for 5 minutes, she said to me, everything that you've gone through and are going through led you to speak in front of over 50 women this past April. And it's going to lead you to speak to over more women next April.
Yeah.
And it's going to lead you to speak to thousands of women. That's your journey. And I went, she doesn't even know the whole story. So for those listening, it's hard. I called it my own personal wilderness. That's what I called it.
It was crazy out here, Olu. I can relate.
It's my own
wild.
personal wilderness. God will see you through it. You have to be willing to navigate it. It's not easy and it's not pretty. It's not for the faint of heart. Your alternative, though, to the wilderness is to stay where you're at.
And endure the costs.
Endure that cost. But that cost will be like me, because I, like Karina, ended up on sick leave.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, I went on sick leave July of 2022 and did not return to work. I knew almost immediately that I wasn't going to return to work. Not because of that particular law firm. I wasn't returning to that law firm, to any law firm, to any 9-to-5 brick and mortar office. I knew that. And that's when the Lord said to me, this is who you are and this is what you're going to do. The journey is tough. It's not easy, but my peace of mind and the joy I feel every morning when I wake up and I say, good morning, Daddy. Thank you for watching over me as I slept. Thank you for waking me up to enjoy another day in your kingdom. It's complete joy. It's authentic joy. Although I just got through saying I wouldn't sign up for it, I'm happy that I'm in it, because along with God is helping me navigate my path. No man tells me what time to get up, what time to go to sleep, what letter to draft, whose name to put upon the letter that I drafted. Nobody's going to make me hire someone that's going to get paid $20,000 more than me. I'm not living that. And I know that all that was taken from me will be replaced 10 times, 100, 1,000-fold. It's not an easy journey, but it's a very necessary one. If you find yourself in one of the situations that Karina and I have talked about, or one of the 2 scenarios that I read on LinkedIn, it's just a necessary journey. It's like being married to somebody and you recognized in year 1.
Oh no, you're going there. No,
yes,
no, Olu.
Just
you're gonna
temporarily
upset somebody today, because we're in the age where things that need to break are breaking.
That's what I'm saying.
So somebody listening needs to leave their marriage.
Well, listen, Lindas. Listen, Lindas and Richards. I ain't telling nobody to leave their marriage. I am not a therapist, psychologist, I'm none of those with an IST at the end. I'm none of those. But there's some truth being told. And see, I can speak the truth to you all because everything I talked about, I've lived.
Yeah.
I stayed in a relationship. I can say this example of 1 year in, you say to yourself, why are you still married to them 15 years later? Whose fault is that? It's not his. It's not hers.
Wait. Pause
it's
there.
Not.
Pause there.
I'm pausing.
What you just said. Whose fault is that? I think you just hit the nail on the head. We don't want to admit
that it's our fault.
Us who's staying in the situation.
Our fault.
That we're actually not victims. No. That we're actually allowing someone to talk to us like this every single day. There is always a choice, and God bends the rules for you when you decide to leave. When you decide to leave, things will work out. You will not go hungry. Was a single meal missed? No. I mean, sometimes. And did I look good? Yes. There's always a cost, and sometimes you just got to pay the price. You
Yep.
got to pay the price in terms of and to make sure that you can show up in your own power. Every time you're staying in a situation that doesn't serve you anymore, you're giving up just a little bit more of your power every single time.
But you're getting something out of it. I'm not a fan of Dr. Phil, but one of the things that he says I do agree with. He always says, "What's in it for you?
What's in it for you?"
There's a reason why you're staying. Maybe he's cute.
Yeah.
Maybe you feel like you can't get nobody. I knew in one of my longest relationships, I knew 18 months into that relationship, yeah, this isn't the one.
Yeah.
13 and a half years later, who do I blame? Who do I blame if I'm still with this guy? Not only with him, oh, I'm like you with the job thing. You know how
Yeah.
you went back after?
Yeah.
I'm fighting for the relationship.
Yeah.
You're fighting for it.
You're not supposed to have to fight.
But you're not fighting to leave. You're
Yeah,
fighting to stay in the nonsense. So if you take the word job out of our title this tonight and put in relationship or friendship or a work, I mean, whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you personally are holding on to for whatever reason, for however long, the onus is on you. I would say to my friends, and this is why I agreed with God 100% when he said you're a life coach. People would always come to me with things. My boyfriend did, my wife did, my boss did, my boss didn't, my friend, my sister, my brother. And I always say to them this: if you're complaining about something over and over and over again, something and or someone, over and over again, and the complaint is the same, the problem is you.
The problem is
not your boss who's horrible. It's not your wife who's cheating. It's not your husband that you can never find. It's not your kids who are bad. The problem is you, because you have choices to make.
And you're not making them.
Leave if you have to leave.
Choices are making you.
But if you're going to stay, and I'll tell them this, I would say leave if you're going to leave.
Leave if you're going to leave.
But if you're going to stay, shut up. I honestly don't want to hear the same thing. Oh, he did it again. He did it again. You know why he did it again? You allowed him to do it again. You have taught him in a roundabout way that what he's doing is okay. Yeah. You've given him permission, or you've given her. I should stop saying him. That's unfair. You've given him or you've given her permission to do it because you haven't really sat them down and said no. And if you have sat them down and said, no, I'm not going to accept that, and they still do it, then you need to leave.
Then you chose to stay.
But if you stay, you have told them in a roundabout way that what they're doing to you is okay. It's the same thing at work. If we stay at work, if we go on sick leave and come back, or like I did with bronchitis, when I dragged myself on the GO train, if anybody had bronchitis, especially in January,
that's a corporate disease.
In the cold, and drag yourself on GO train to go. Well, who are we trying to impress?
We don't want to call in sick for another day. That's why.
Why? Who are we trying to impress? And whose fault is that? We can't say I work for a horrible company and a horrible boss that made me come into work when I was sick. Now, if you called in sick and they said, you better bring your, into work, that's a whole different scenario. But when you get up and you think, but no, I work for a downtown law firm and we have a closing next week and blah, 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 I gotta go.
Like, you stopped yourself. Like, you are now so indoctrinated that you're using their rules and their system and their expectations for life on yourself. It becomes intertwined. That goes with the losing your sense of self.
There you go. Accountability, responsibility. Teach people how to treat you better. I don't care if it's an employer. I don't care if it's your husband. I don't care if it's your wife. I don't care if it's your children. I love my daughter. She's probably watching or will watch it later. Love her dearly. And those of you that know her know that she is an amazing child. However, she has her time. She has her moments. But I do know that if I allow her to get away with certain things, she's going to do it.
Yeah.
She's going to do it. And then you end up with a child that's cussing you out left, right, and center.
Yeah.
I like the fact that at almost 30, my daughter does not cuss in my household.
Wow.
I'm not saying she don't cuss.
Yeah.
Because I can just tell by the look punch your face when she get on the road, it goes down. I'm pretty sure.
But not in your house.
Not even.
Because that was your boundary.
That's just one of those things. And there's certain things as parents you got to hold on to. We can't hold on to all of it because things have changed. The way I was raised is different than the way these kids are now. But my daughter will not cuss in my household. And not only will she not cuss in my household, the other day one of her friends said, friggin' in my house. And everything, TV and everything stopped. And she said to him, like she did the whole black parent thing where you don't speak.
Yeah, you just look.
Just look. And he's like, Mom, I'm so sorry. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't have to say anything. And I loved that. At least I can hold on to that. I can claim
Hold on
that.
to that.
And those are the kind of things we're talking about, even in your work environment. Those two examples that I read from LinkedIn, the girl
There's
who went back, there's boundaries. When you take that counter offer and you go back, you've given them
now
permission.
shown them.
Yes.
You gave them a permission
to
slip.
continue treating you as badly as they were.
And not only that,
Oh,
but
my
one
goodness.
thing I have noticed now that I'm on the contractor side and now that I'm on the side, I don't know, I guess when you take away the feeling, the employee feeling, you realize it is just a box. It is just a mindset.
Yeah.
And when you do state your needs, when you're doing your job, if you state your needs respectfully, usually if it's a reasonable environment, they're going to respect it. I notice in all work environments, just like what you're saying, if you give someone an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Absolutely.
They're going to keep pushing the boundary. Yep. So if you're a hard worker and you never complain about the work that you're given, that's the thing. You talk to these staff who have those experiences and they're complaining, they're resentful about the amount of work. Okay, but did you let any of the balls drop yet? Did you let anything drop on the job? We got to do sink or swim sometimes, because nothing will change if you keep accepting it. And if you slowly decide like what your criteria is, what you want your work day to look like, especially in the corporate world, no one is going to, well, in my experience, come up to you and try to tell you how you should do it differently.
I also think and this is something that I practiced when I got into the law firms. I was always afraid of working at a law firm. I worked at a search house before going
What's a search house?
It's where we did corporate searches, but they weren't a law firm. So you can go and you can get all the searches that you wanted. So if you wanted to do a real estate search on property, you went that. If you need to do a corporate profile report on a company, we went there. So they were called search houses. They were really big back in the day. So that's what I worked at before I got into law firms. And I had heard about law firms, and everybody who was anybody wanted to work at a law firm. But I also knew I heard about all the overtime and the stress, and I wasn't about that. So in every interview, I was very bold, and I would say, I don't do overtime. I said that in the interview.
And no one was ever put off by it?
I don't know, because I'm assuming if I didn't get that job, you were put off by it.
Yeah, true.
Nobody said anything. They would just you would see them physically pause. So when you're interviewing and they're taking notes and they're writing. Yes. And then you say that and you see this. Yeah. It takes a second for it to hit them. No one ever said anything then and there.
Yeah.
But I always said to myself, if I didn't get a particular job, it was because I wasn't a good fit for them, and that's fine. However, if I did get that job, they knew. And here's what happened. I worked at one of the biggest firms as well. I won't name the firm. And I remember, because I was so clear in the interview process, and it's a 2-3 step program process when you go into the top law firms and you're in your top level. So it's not just one interview and you're done. It's 2-3. And I would say the same thing in each interview. And here's what happens when you get the job. My phone will ring at 4:45. And they know my train's at 5 something. They know that. And it will go like this. Hey, Olu, I was hoping you can do, I just saw the time. It's 4:45. You probably pack up and catch a train. Okay, tell you what, call me in the morning. But that's the boundaries that I set.
Set the boundary.
Right? If someone came to my office at 4 to 5, they'd be like, ooh, you're catching a train, aren't you? You know what? It'll wait till morning.
But you see how they would ask.
Yes.
They would give the opportunity for you to say, oh, no, it's okay. I'm leaving later today.
But that's not their fault. That's
exactly.
mine.
It becomes your fault.
Because they're saying to you, and they are looking at you with that look like, oh, please say you can stay. Please say you can stay. And you say, yeah, no. And even if you don't have anything planned, leave and catch that train.
Yes,
you teach people how to treat you.
You know what my boundary is? My boundary, after going through everything I've gone through, how I start every business relationship and even coaching relationship, how honest can I be? Because this is initially why I fought the title of a coach for so long, because I'm sometimes the friend who can hurt feelings. I'm sometimes the friend who you call to say hi, and now because I could read the tone in your voice, like I know you had a terrible day because you did XYZ, and like I'll just cut right through it and be like, well, you since you said hi, but I'm saying da 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 da, like that's what you get back in a friendship with me.
Yeah.
And you know, when you have those personalities, you've been told that you've been a lot for so long to those people, but now I just start the relationship with that. I am like unbearingly honest sometimes,
You need to be.
but my intentions are always good. My intentions are never to hurt feelings. If I'm bringing something up, it's for the good of the business. It's for your better good. It's never to be nasty. And I need to know that this is going to be an environment where it's not going to be taken out of context, or you're not going to be offended that I'm being honest. And even to this day, in my professional relationships, I feel like now that I start with that boundary, by the time someone chooses to work with me in any capacity, that's usually their favorite quality.
They know what they're getting.
But it's beyond that. They chose me for that. It's just like
that.
just like you saying you're not going to work overtime, that tells me if someone is telling you 10 times they're not working overtime, during 9 to 5, the job will be done.
It will be done.
The job will be done. So you just need to abide by whatever that person says. So for me, if you're choosing to work with me, I'm going to bring you a list of 21 things, and I'm serious as hell about 21 things. I meditated on it, prayed about it, thought about it. I wrote it down in a list. I'm a pro and con type of person. I'm thorough. So when I bring it to you, don't tell me it's not true. Like that is my one thing. Because in the corporate environment, they will tell you it's not happening. They'll tell you it's not true. And I work in business operations, so I could see the lies. I'm like, but the revenue, I see it falling, and they're like, they don't want to know. So I've learned I'm going to get myself into trouble. There's going to be major costs, whether it's financial, whether it's, I've never like lost a job, but that's a risk of being too honest, right? In environments where they don't want to hear what you have to say. So a key tenet of my business right now, especially in coaching, is like, you have to be able to hear the truth. And I'll never aim to hurt your feelings, but I'll aim to bring you to the light. I'll bring you to the truth.
I like that a lot. I might even adopt that. I'm just going to see if there's any questions in there that Shireen thinks I need to answer. Just more comments and no questions or anything. Yeah. But there's no question. Okay. Good. Well, wow, that's a lot to digest.
Yeah, this is a big conversation
to digest. If I think I'll have Karina. Definitely, will have Karina on again, just to continue this conversation. Not the next live, but maybe in the new year when people are really looking at their finances, because the Christmas has come and gone. But I will say this though, to wrap up, the topic was the cost of staying at a job too long. And the cost is a price that I don't think any of us can afford to pay.
No.
Your health is at risk. Your life is at risk. Your joy is at risk. I loved being a law clerk. I loved it. I think I was really good at it until I wasn't. Until I didn't enjoy it anymore. Until I became a paper pusher. Until that's just how it felt. And it's not a whoa, 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 poor me type thing. It's just that's how I felt. I know people that have been around me, especially since I've transitioned from being a law clerk to a life coach. And you've heard me say this a million times. Get used to it. You're going to hear me say it a million more times. I've never been happier. Doing what I'm doing now, I have never been happier. Ever been happier doing what I'm doing now. That's the price of getting out of a toxic relationship, a toxic environment, whatever that environment and or relationship looks like. That's the reward of getting out of it.
Don't you feel like you get to, so I guess you can compare, since you've worked both. When you work a corporate job, everything in your life becomes a rush because you're always rushing to get back to the task. That's not important. That's a man-made deadline, but I digress. You're getting back to the task. You're being rude to the gas attendant. You're being, and you don't even realize, because it makes you so self-important. It makes you so in your inner world. Like your manager, what your manager wants is more important than how somebody feels when they're pumping your gas. But when you get into a situation where you eject yourself from those environments, you have time again, you actually realize how much humanity is lost and how much you yourself can contribute to it. I love talking to grocery store attendants.
Oh.
Like, these are the small things. We talked about the costs, but let's talk about the gains.
gain.
About the gains
gain
of being an
yourself back.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
The waking up in the morning. Let me tell you, every day between 9 and 10, I have a tea. I have a tea, and I go on my deck with my little journal. Sometimes I just go sit in the sun. Sometimes I go out to Lake Ontario. Listen, I stand out there and I feel so good. And sometimes I think about the trade-off and the price. You know how you spoke about you wouldn't choose this for yourself, but like, damn, you're gonna reap all the benefits now because you've been through it.
Yeah, it's a blessing. And when I say I wouldn't choose it for myself, I think it was the late Dr. Monroe that said, if because God works from the ending to the beginning. Like, our story is already written, right? God knows how it ends. And then he just works backwards, helping us get there. If God says to you at the end, this is what I have for you, you know, big house, car, all the riches and everything. You're like, yes, yes, yes. When do I get it? When do I get it? And he says, you've got to go through this. And he shows you the wilderness. You're going to be like,
oh, hell to the no.
Matter of fact, I think I'm all right. Right. So that's what I mean when I say I wouldn't choose this.
Yeah.
But being in it, I'm grateful for the lessons I'm learning. I'm grateful for the growth and all that. But to wrap it up, because I just realized that we are well over.
Are we?
We well over.
How long has it been?
Almost an hour and 15 minutes, but that's okay.
We had so much fun.
And it was so much to discuss. I know we have more. We'll be back. The two of us will be back. But I just wanted to make sure I ended on the topic, which was the cost of staying at a job too long or staying in a situation too long. There is a cost. Be prepared to be willing to pay it. If you're not, get out. And I know it sounds so easy to say because they're just words, and I don't mean to minimize it. I don't mean to say, okay, at the end of this live, hang up and then just go and get out. No, no, no. Karina gave her example of being out, essentially, and going back in, and not even going back in, but wanting more. I've given my example. And there was a payoff. We felt like we were high and mighty. We felt like we were living the life. We felt like we were one of the men them.
Yeah.
You know, no, seriously.
We have to get knocked off the pedestal and be humbled.
You have to be humbled. You really do, because you feel like you're in that world until you look around and realize, I don't even recognize this world, much alone do I know if I really want to be in it. It's all a lie. It's all a lie. So you have to look at the cost of that and what the payoff is. Are you getting out of it what you really want and or need to get out of it? Is this really who God made you to be? Are you comfortable? Are you happy? These are the things you need to ask yourself. And then once you answer those questions for yourself and honestly, then start making your escape route. Then start saying, okay, what's next? Maybe it's not entrepreneur. Maybe it's not becoming the next budget doctor or becoming the next motivational life coach. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's, I want to be a dog groomer. That's what I've always wanted to be. I could open up my own shop. I can do it mobile. It could be, I've always wanted to be a hairdresser. It doesn't have to be a 9-to-5 in an office where someone tells you what time to come in, what time to leave, what time to go for lunch, what time to go to the bathroom. It can be your own world. But first, have that honest conversation with yourself. Am I happy? And then go from there. It's not going to be easy, but the payoff, which we haven't taken enough time talking about. That's part two. Yeah, that's part two. That's part the payoff for leaving. Okay, part two is to come. Called the payoff.
And the experience of what it feels like when you're on the floor. But after you get your knees cut off at the knees, we have to talk about what happens when you're humbled. That's next time. Because there's tears, there's stories in that alone.
There is a whole journey to that alone. But at the end of the day, knees cut off, on floor, humble, tears, it's worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much. This has been so good. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so good. We will be back. My next live is going to be, Shireen, help me out here. What day is it today? Oh, I know what. My next live is going to be on November 14th because I'll be going away for a little while. I'll be in Europe. I'm going to try and do those little selfie things that people do.
Black girls who travel.
Yeah, I ain't all about that whole thing. I'm going to try, but I'll try to keep up with you guys while I'm gone. But my next live will be on November the 14th. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for Karina for being here.
You're welcome.
There will be a part 2. Thanks for listening. Good night, guys.